"Don't let the dark take me," whispered the alien child. The human stayed all night. Captain Elias Reed moved carefully through the dense undergrowth, his boots crunching softly on the moss-covered ground. The air was heavy with the scent of alien flora, a mix of sweet and metallic notes that clung to his uniform. He had traveled far from the human colonies, sent to explore this isolated planet at the edge of explored space. It was supposed to be a routine survey mission: collect samples, scan for unusual life forms, and return. But even in the first hours, Elias realized that Elira was anything but ordinary. The forest was alive in ways he could not immediately understand. Trees with luminescent veins pulsed gently, like they were breathing. Strange insects flickered with light as they moved between the branches. There was a rhythm here, a quiet music that seemed to hum beneath the surface. Elias stopped to examine a flower that shimmered like liquid silver. As he reached out to scan it, a soft, trembling whisper cut through the forest's hum. "Don't let the dark take me." Elias froze. His hand hovered over the scanner. The voice was soft, almost fragile, but there was a raw fear in it that made his stomach tighten. He looked around, scanning the shadows between the glowing trees. "Hello," he called gently, his voice low. "Is someone there?" The whisper came again, closer this time. "Please don't leave me." Elias' training kicked in. Humans had always been careful on uncharted worlds. Contact with alien life could be dangerous, even deadly. Yet there was something different about this voice, something urgent and vulnerable. Following the sound, he stepped over twisted roots and thick moss, his eyes darting to every shadow. Then between two glowing ferns, he saw her, a small figure crouched on the forest floor. The child was humanoid in shape, but unlike any human Elias had ever seen. Her skin was translucent, with faintly glowing patterns that shifted with her emotions. Her eyes were large and liquid, changing color as she trembled. She had delicate limbs, almost ethereal, and her hair floated lightly, as if caught in an invisible current. She stared at him with wide, frightened eyes. "Are you okay?" Elias asked carefully, lowering himself to appear less threatening. The child flinched but did not run. I can't be alone," she whispered. Her voice was almost musical, fragile like the hum of the forest. "The dark it takes," her words faltered, and she shivered violently. Elias instinctively reached into his bag and pulled out a small light lantern, activating it. A warm glow filled the space between them. "It's okay," he said gently. "I'm not going anywhere." "You're safe now?" The child hesitated, then slowly crept closer, as if the light made her brave enough to trust him. When she finally touched his hand, it was like a spark ran through the air. Elias realized that she was not just scared, she was frightened in a way that was deeply instinctual, as if she could sense the dangers lurking in the dark forest more acutely than any human could. "What's your name?" he asked. "Lyra," she whispered. Her voice trembled, but there was a quiet dignity in it despite her fear. "Lyra, I'm Elias," he said, offering a reassuring smile. "You're alone, aren't you?" She nodded, her glowing eyes filling with tears. I was with my colony." But the storm, it came. Her voice broke. "I couldn't find anyone. I ran and I got lost." Elias felt a pang in his chest. He had heard stories of alien colonies struggling to survive in hostile environments, but this was different. Here was a child completely alone, terrified of the night. He thought of his own daughter back on Earth, and the protective instinct in him surged. "You're safe with me, Lyra," he said firmly. "I'll stay with you. We'll get through the night together." She stared at him for a long moment, her shifting skin patterns dimming slightly as she considered him. Then, almost imperceptibly, she nodded. I don't want the dark to take me," she whispered again, her small hand clutching his sleeve. Elias guided her to a clearing surrounded by thick, bioluminescent plants. He began assembling a makeshift shelter with his portable equipment, a light shield, some compact panels, and the few tools he carried. He worked quickly, conscious that night was approaching. Even in the dim twilight, shadows began to twist unnaturally in the distance. Every movement, every rustle of leaves seemed amplified in the silence. As he worked, Lyra watched closely, whispering fragments of stories about her home. She spoke of the trees in her colony, which could communicate through subtle vibrations, and of the protective creatures that lived alongside her people. But then her voice faltered. "The dark, it's different here. It's hungry, it listens, it waits." She shivered and pressed against him. Elias felt a chill, not from the cold, but from understanding. Some creatures could survive by hunting instinctively. Others, like these, seemed to feed on fear itself. He realized that protecting Lyra would be more than just keeping physical predators away. It would require keeping her courage alive. Night fell fully, and the forest transformed. The soft bioluminescence of the plants cast eerie, shifting shadows. Strange, almost whispering sounds moved through the trees. Elias could sense the life around him, the strange rhythm of the forest becoming more urgent as darkness deepened. He positioned the lanterns around their small shelter and activated a few motion sensors, hoping to keep potential threats at a distance. Lyra huddled close, her small form trembling. "Don't let the dark take me," she murmured, clutching his arm. Elias smiled, trying to sound calm even though his own heart raced. "I won't, I promise, just stay close to me." Hours passed slowly. The forest seemed to test them, strange noises moving closer, shadows creeping at the edge of their lights. Elias stayed alert, scanning with his eyes and instruments. Whenever something moved too close, he gently shook the lantern to cast the light toward it, and the shadows would recoil, hesitant. Lyra's trembling eased slightly as she realized he was serious about keeping her safe. She began to talk more, sharing memories of her parents and their teachings. She spoke of courage, compassion, and the importance of hope even in the darkest moments. Elias listened, fascinated by the depth of her understanding and the strength in her small, fragile body. He realized that, despite being a child, Lyra possessed a unique perspective on life, one that could teach even a seasoned human explorer something valuable. Time blurred in the forest. Elias stayed awake, holding the lantern, occasionally speaking softly to Lyra to keep her calm. He used his training to keep both of them alert, quietly adjusting his makeshift barriers, listening for any sign of approaching danger. And all the while, Lyra's whispers punctuated the night. "Don't let the dark take me, don't let the dark take me." By the time the first hints of dawn began to brush the horizon, Elias felt the tension in his body ease just slightly. Lyra had fallen asleep beside him, her glowing patterns dim and soft, her breathing even. He watched over her, feeling a mix of relief and admiration. In her fear, she had shown courage, and in her trust, he had discovered something profoundly human within himself. The night had been long, filled with uncertainty and danger, yet it had forged a fragile bond between a human and an alien child. Elias knew the challenges were far from over. The forest still held secrets, and Lyra's colony still needed to be found. But in that small clearing, as the light of the twin moons faded, there was hope. And for Elias, hope had never felt so important or so human. He whispered softly, more to himself than to her, "We made it through the night, Lyra, and tomorrow we'll find a way forward." The alien child stirred slightly, murmuring in her sleep, and the forest seemed to breathe around them as if acknowledging their survival. Elias knew that this was only the beginning of a journey that would test both of them, challenge them, and ultimately reveal the strength of courage, trust, and the human spirit. For now, though, they rested. The dark had not taken them. And as the first rays of light stretched across Elira, Elias allowed himself a moment of quiet satisfaction. He had stayed, he had protected. And in that act alone, he had proven that humans could make a difference, even on the edge of the universe, even against a dark they could not fully understand. The first light of dawn crept through the dense forest, painting the trees in soft shades of green and silver. Captain Elias Reed stirred, careful not to wake Lyra, who slept curled up beside him. The previous night had been exhausting, but it had also been a revelation. Lyra was no ordinary child, and the forest of Elira was far more alive and dangerous than he had imagined. He stood slowly, stretching his tired limbs, and surveyed the clearing. The soft glow of bioluminescent plants was dim under the rising light, but the forest was already shifting. Birds-like creatures with shimmering feathers darted between branches, and small animals with translucent skin scuttled across the moss. Despite the beauty, Elias knew they had to move carefully. Lyra's colony could be anywhere, and the forest had a way of confusing even the most experienced explorers. He gently nudged Lyra awake. "Morning," he said softly. "We should get ready to move." Lyra's large, color-shifting eyes opened slowly. She rubbed her face with tiny hands and looked around. "The dark, it's gone?" she asked, her voice still small and trembling. "For now," Elias replied with a small smile. "But we need to be careful. The forest can change quickly, and the night will come again." Lyra nodded, and together they packed the small supplies Elias had brought. Water rations, energy bars, a few medical supplies, and the portable scanner were all they had. He knew they would need to ration carefully. As they moved deeper into the forest, Lyra walked close to him, her small hand gripping his sleeve. Elias tried to keep his tone calm and reassuring. "Tell me more about your colony," he said. "Maybe it will help us find the way." Lyra's eyes brightened slightly. "We live in the floating groves. The trees rise high above the ground, and the wind carries our voices. We can call to each other even across the sky. My parents, they taught me to listen to the forest, to understand the songs of the plants. The night is dangerous, but we trust it if we are careful." Elias listened carefully, fascinated. "Floating groves, so your homes are in the trees?" "Yes," she said. "High above, safe from most creatures, but the storm, it destroyed the bridges, and I couldn't find anyone. I ran, and then I got lost." The memory of her fear from last night returned vividly. Elias felt a surge of protectiveness. "We'll find them," he said firmly. "I promise we'll get you home." Hours passed as they navigated the forest. The trees became taller, their trunks thick and twisted, their branches intertwining high above. Strange creatures watched them from the shadows, glowing eyes flickering in the distance. Elias remained alert, using his scanner to detect movement and any unusual life forms. He noticed patterns. Some creatures moved cautiously, almost as if they were studying them, while others hid and watched silently. Lyra's fear remained subtle but constant. Every rustle, every whisper of wind made her pause and cling closer to him. Elias realized that her instincts were finely tuned. She could sense danger long before his instruments could detect it. He decided to use that to their advantage. "Lyra," he said, kneeling to her level. "You can help me. If you see or hear something first, tell me immediately." "I'll follow your lead." The child hesitated, then nodded. I can feel it. The creatures, they are near." "Good," Elias said quietly. "Then tell me when you sense them." For the rest of the morning, they moved carefully, Lyra pointing out subtle signs, a broken branch, a rustle in the leaves, a shadow flickering across the ground. Elias followed her guidance, keeping the path clear and safe. He realized that humans, despite all their technology, could learn from creatures like Lyra, creatures who lived in harmony with their environment and understood its hidden language. By midday, they reached a small clearing with a shallow stream. Lyra knelt beside it, dipping her hands into the cool water. "Water helps calm the creatures," she said softly. "They avoid it if it's moving and clear." Elias knelt beside her. "Interesting, I didn't know that." He refilled their bottles and drank sparingly. They rested for a while, eating a small portion of their supplies. Lyra seemed calmer near the water, and Elias allowed himself a brief moment of relief. But the forest was never truly safe. As they prepared to move again, the first shadows of a new threat appeared. From the edges of the clearing, strange figures emerged. They were not like the animals or birds they had seen earlier. These were darker, taller, almost liquid in form, their bodies blending with the shadows around them. Elias' scanner registered nothing unusual. They seemed invisible to his instruments, but Lyra's glow shifted rapidly, a clear sign of fear. They are coming," she whispered, gripping his sleeve tightly. Elias stayed calm even as his heart raced. "Stay close to me," he said. "We can scare them away." The creatures moved silently, circling the clearing. Elias grabbed a portable light panel and activated it, casting a strong beam toward them. The figures recoiled as if burned by the brightness. Lyra instinctively held her hands out, her glowing skin pulsing with soft light that seemed to amplify the effect. The creatures hissed and retreated slightly but did not vanish. "They are afraid of light," Elias muttered. "Good, that gives us a chance." He arranged the portable lights around the clearing, forming a protective circle. Lyra followed his instructions, using her innate glow to strengthen the barrier. Together, they created a safe zone, a small island of light in the growing darkness of the forest. Hours passed like this. The creatures tested the perimeter, creeping closer and then retreating. Elias realized that they were not mindless. They were intelligent predators, drawn to fear rather than hunger. Lyra's presence, her small but steady courage, made the creatures hesitate. She began to understand this too. I can push them away," she whispered. "If I stay calm, they fear me less, but they still respect my light." Elias smiled, impressed. "Yes, Lyra, that's it. Stay calm, focus on your light, and we'll be safe together." Night approached again, darker and heavier than before. The twin moons rose, casting long, twisted shadows through the trees. The predators returned, testing their defenses. Elias held the lantern, adjusting the light panels as Lyra focused her glow. Slowly, they managed to keep the creatures at bay, working together as a team. "This is different," Elias said quietly. "Humans usually rely on weapons and technology, but this is something else. You and I together, we can face anything." Lyra looked up at him, her eyes flickering with colors of trust and determination. I am not afraid," she whispered. "Not if you are with me." Elias felt a surge of pride and warmth. The child's courage was growing, and in turn, he felt more human than ever before. Here, on a distant world filled with dangers he could barely understand, he discovered a truth he had always known but rarely experienced. Courage and trust could be as powerful as any weapon. Through the night, they continued moving cautiously, finding brief moments of safety in small clearings, beside streams, or under the protective canopy of thick, glowing trees. Elias kept Lyra close, guiding her with gentle words, teaching her how to project calm and confidence. She began to respond, her glow stronger, her fear lessened. By the time the second dawn approached, they had traveled much farther than Elias had expected. Lyra's colony still remained hidden, but now they both understood something important. Survival was not just about hiding or running. It was about trust, courage, and the bond they shared. Exhausted but alive, they found a shallow cave to rest. Lyra curled up beside him, her small body glowing faintly in the dim light. Elias stayed awake, keeping watch. He thought about the predators they had faced, the challenges yet to come, and the child who had taught him more about bravery in a single night than he had learned in decades of human training. "This forest, it is alive," he whispered softly. "And it will test anyone who walks here, but we are stronger together, Lyra. Together we can face it all." Lyra murmured in her sleep, a faint echo of her previous words, but now carrying a new tone of hope. "We are not afraid, we are not alone." Elias allowed himself a brief smile. The night had been long and dangerous, but it had also been a lesson in resilience. The human spirit, combined with Lyra's courage, had created a bond that even the darkness could not break. Tomorrow, they would continue the journey to her colony. There would be more challenges, more predators, and more nights to survive. But Elias knew that as long as he stayed with Lyra, as long as they trusted each other, they would endure. They would face the forest, the dark, and whatever else the universe had to throw at them. And through it all, they would prove that courage, hope, and human determination could shine brighter than any shadow. The forest of Elira grew darker with each passing hour. The twin moons cast long shadows, and even the soft bioluminescent plants seemed to tremble under the weight of approaching night. Captain Elias Reed moved carefully, his senses sharp, as he guided Lyra through twisting roots and dense undergrowth. The child had grown more confident since the previous night, but Elias knew that the forest's predators would not rest. They would test her, and him, in ways neither had yet faced. Lyra walked close, her glowing skin pulsing faintly, a signal of her growing courage. She whispered quietly, almost to herself, "I can feel them, they are near." Elias glanced around, scanning the shadows. "Good, then stay alert. Remember, calm is your strength." She nodded, her small hand brushing against his sleeve for reassurance. The creatures that haunted the night fed on fear, and Elias realized that her instinctual gift to sense them was only useful if paired with courage. Together, they were learning to survive, not just by hiding but by standing strong. As darkness deepened, the forest became a maze of shadows and whispers. Strange shapes flickered between the trees, moving with a fluidity that made them almost invisible. Elias could see hints of glowing eyes, and occasionally a long, sinuous form slithered across the ground. He set up small, portable light panels in strategic spots, forming a protective path. Lyra followed his instructions, letting her inner glow extend outward, reinforcing the barrier. "They are testing us," Elias whispered. "See how we react." Lyra's glow brightened. I will not be afraid." The first of the creatures approached. It was taller than a human, dark and shifting, almost like liquid shadow. Its form twisted unnaturally as it moved, and Elias could feel the tension in the air as it surveyed them. He held the lantern high, casting its beam directly at the shadow. The creature hissed, recoiling slightly, but it did not flee. It was not hungry, it was probing. "They sense fear," Elias said quietly. "Stay calm, focus on your light, Lyra." The child's glowing skin expanded, brightening the small clearing. For the first time, Elias noticed that her light had a rhythm, pulsing in harmony with her breathing. The creature hesitated, then slowly backed away, testing her again. Elias realized that this was not just a fight, it was a lesson in control, trust, and courage. Hours passed like this. Each new shadow was a test, each hiss or rustle a challenge. Elias stayed alert, using his technology to monitor movements, but he relied more on Lyra's instincts. She pointed out subtle signs, a flick of leaves, a faint vibration through the ground, a whispering sound in the branches. These small warnings gave them time to adjust their defenses. At one point, Lyra froze, her glow flickering rapidly. They are very close," she whispered. Elias looked up and saw a massive form emerging from the shadows, a predator unlike any they had faced. Its body was black and fluid, almost smoke-like, with glowing eyes that seemed to pierce through the darkness. "This one, it is dangerous," Elias muttered. "Stay close to me." The creature circled, testing their perimeter. Elias moved quickly, positioning light panels to block its path. Lyra's glow intensified as she projected calm, and for a moment the predator paused, confused by the combined light and the child's confidence. Then it struck, moving faster than the eye could follow. Elias reacted instinctively, grabbing a portable energy net and hurling it toward the creature. The net shimmered with electric energy, wrapping around the shadow for a moment before it dissolved harmlessly. The predator hissed and retreated slightly, but Elias knew it would not give up easily. "Lyra, focus," he said firmly. "You can do this." The child closed her eyes, taking deep, steadying breaths. Her glow pulsed, brighter and steadier than before, and Elias felt a strange warmth radiate from her. The creature paused, sensing the change. It hissed again, testing them, but it did not advance. "You see," Elias whispered, "your courage matters, it keeps them away." Lyra opened her eyes, a faint smile on her lips. I can do this. We can do this together." They continued through the forest, moving cautiously but steadily. The night was long, and each new challenge tested both their patience and their skill. Elias realized that survival was not just about physical strength. It was about strategy, calm, and the ability to inspire courage in others. Lyra was learning quickly, and her confidence grew with each encounter. At one point, they reached a narrow canyon, the walls covered in glowing vines that pulsed softly. The floor was littered with strange, spiny plants that reacted to movement. Elias stopped and examined the area. "We have to cross carefully," he said. "The shadows are stronger here, and the predators use this terrain to their advantage." Lyra's glow flared. "I can feel their fear. We must move slowly together." Step by step, they navigated the canyon. Elias led the way, using his lantern to illuminate the path and his scanner to detect hidden threats. Lyra followed, projecting calm, her light guiding them. Twice, predators emerged from the shadows, testing their courage. Each time, Lyra's confidence and Elias' quick thinking forced them back. By the time they reached the canyon's end, the first hints of dawn began to appear. The predators retreated as the light grew stronger, and the forest seemed to exhale, the tension easing slightly. Elias allowed himself a brief moment of relief, but he knew their journey was far from over. Lyra's colony remained hidden, and the forest still held many dangers. They found a small ledge overlooking a valley below. The view was breathtaking. The floating groves of Lyra's home shimmered in the early light, their branches rising high above the forest floor. Elias felt a surge of hope. "There it is," he said softly. "Your home." Lyra's eyes widened, her glow shifting with excitement and relief. Yes, but the bridge, it is broken. How will we get there?" Elias studied the terrain. The storm had destroyed the main pathways, but there were vines and natural arches they could use. "We'll find a way," he said firmly. "Step by step. We've survived the night and we can cross this together." The next few hours were tense. They navigated treacherous paths, using light panels and Lyra's glowing guidance to avoid predators. The child's confidence grew with each step, and Elias felt a deep sense of pride. She was learning to control her fear, to trust her instincts, and to rely on her abilities. At one point, a massive shadow lunged from the underbrush. Elias reacted instantly, grabbing a portable energy net, but this time he did not act alone. Lyra raised her hands, her glow pulsing, and the predator stopped in its tracks, confused and hesitant. Elias hurled the net, capturing it briefly, and together they forced the creature to retreat. "See," Elias said, breathless, "you are stronger than you think. Courage is powerful." Lyra smiled faintly, exhaustion and pride mixing in her expression. I understand now." The dark, it can't take me if I am brave. They reached the edge of the valley as the sun fully rose, bathing the forest in golden light. The predators retreated into the shadows, and the forest seemed to hum with calm energy. Elias looked at Lyra, seeing not just a frightened child, but a courageous, resilient being who had faced the night and survived. "Tomorrow we will find your colony," he said, "and you will show them how strong you are." Lyra nodded, her glow steady and calm. "Thank you, Elias, for staying. I could not have done it alone." Elias smiled, feeling a deep sense of connection. The bond they had forged in the darkness was stronger than any fear, stronger than any predator. It was a bond built on trust, courage, and the shared experience of surviving against impossible odds. As they rested on the ledge, Elias looked out over the valley, the floating groves shimmering in the morning light. He knew challenges remained. The terrain was difficult, predators still lurked, and Lyra's colony was unaware of their presence. But he also knew that together they could face anything. For now, though, they allowed themselves a brief moment of peace. The night had tested them, and they had emerged stronger. Lyra's confidence and Elias' determination had created a shield stronger than any light panel or weapon. And as the sun rose over Elira, painting the forest in gold and silver, Elias realized something profound. Humans had a unique gift, the ability to endure, to inspire courage in others, and to face the unknown with determination. In this distant world, with a small alien child by his side, he had witnessed the best of what humanity could be. The journey was not over. There were still nights to survive, predators to evade, and a colony to reach. But for the first time, Elias felt certain that they would succeed. Courage, trust, and the human spirit had carried them through the darkness once, and they would do so again. Lyra's hand slipped into his, small but firm. "Together," she whispered. "Together," Elias replied, and for the first time that night he felt completely at peace. The valley stretched out before them, golden in the morning light. Floating groves rose high above the forest floor, their glowing branches swaying gently in the breeze. Captain Elias Reed and Lyra paused at the edge of the cliff, catching their breath after the treacherous climb and the long night of evading predators. For the first time in many days, Lyra's eyes were free of fear. Her glow pulsed softly, steady and calm, reflecting the hope she now felt. "Look, Elias," she whispered, pointing toward a distant grove where faint lights flickered. "That is where my people are." Elias studied the grove carefully. The bridges and pathways that had once connected the floating groves were broken, the storm having torn apart the delicate structures that Lyra's colony depended on. The task of reaching her people would not be easy, but Elias was determined. "We'll figure it out," he said firmly. "One step at a time. We've faced the dark together, we can face anything else." Lyra smiled faintly, her small hand gripping his. I can do this. I'm not afraid anymore." They began their descent into the valley. Elias led the way, scouting the safest path, while Lyra's glow lit their steps. The terrain was difficult, covered in thick moss, roots, and jagged rocks. Several times, Elias had to steady Lyra, pulling her up when she slipped or guiding her around dangerous plants. The child's confidence grew with each step, and the bond between them deepened. As they neared the first grove, movement in the shadows caught Elias' eye. Predators, lingering from the previous nights, tested the edge of their courage once more. They were dark and fluid, moving with a silent, menacing grace. Elias quickly set up a light barrier, placing portable panels in a circle and activating the small lanterns. Lyra stood beside him, her glow bright and steady, her fear now replaced with determination. "They are still afraid of me," she whispered, her voice firm. I can keep them away." Elias nodded. "Yes, together we are stronger than they are." The predators circled, hissing and testing the barrier, but each time they approached, Lyra's glow pulsed with increasing strength. Elias added more light panels, reinforcing the perimeter, while quietly reminding the child to breathe and stay calm. For the first time, he realized that Lyra's courage was not just instinct, it was a choice. She chose to stand strong, and in doing so, she created a shield that even the most terrifying predators could not penetrate. Hours passed, and the shadows eventually retreated into the deeper forest. Elias allowed himself a brief sigh of relief. "The night is still dangerous," he said, "but I think we can make it to your colony now." The grove's first structures came into view. They were beautiful and delicate, made of wood-like materials interwoven with vines and glowing flora. Platforms floated high above the forest floor, connected by bridges that now hung broken in places. Lyra's eyes filled with tears of relief and longing. "My home, it survived," she whispered, but reaching it was not simple. The main bridge had collapsed, leaving a wide gap between them and the grove. Elias examined the area carefully. Using some ropes and the remaining portable equipment, he began constructing a makeshift crossing. He tested the balance and strength, ensuring that it would hold both of them. Lyra watched, helping as best she could, her confidence now evident in the way she followed his instructions. "You can do this," Elias said, tying the last knot. "One step at a time, I will be right beside you." The crossing was tense. Each step made the bridge sway, the gap below seeming endless. Elias moved slowly, ensuring Lyra kept her balance. Her glow pulsed steadily, reflecting the focus and bravery she had learned over the past nights. Midway, a shadow flickered across the forest floor below, a reminder that danger had not vanished completely. "Keep going, Lyra," Elias urged softly. "We're almost there." She nodded, tightening her grip on his hand. Step by step they crossed, her courage and determination unwavering. When they reached the other side, Elias allowed himself a rare smile. Lyra's colony was within reach. The inhabitants of the floating grove appeared, curious and cautious. They were humanoid like Lyra, their glowing skin flickering softly, their eyes wide with astonishment. Mothers held their young close, and elders observed silently. When Lyra stepped forward, glowing brightly, her people rushed toward her. There were tears, soft words, and gentle embraces. She had returned, safe and unharmed. Elias remained at the edge, allowing her reunion to unfold. He felt a deep sense of fulfillment. He had promised to protect her through the night, and he had kept that promise. Not with weapons or brute force, but with patience, courage, and the quiet strength of staying. One of the elders approached him. "You are human," she said in a musical voice, "and yet you risked yourself to protect a child of our people. Why?" Elias thought for a moment. "Because it was the right thing to do, because courage and trust matter even in the darkest moments, because sometimes staying with someone through the night is more important than anything else." The elder nodded, respect shining in their glowing eyes. "You honor us, human. Your spirit is brave, you have our gratitude." Lyra turned to Elias, her small hands gripping his arm. "Thank you," she whispered, "for not leaving me, for teaching me to be brave, to face the dark." Elias smiled gently. "You taught me too, Lyra. Courage is not just about strength. It's about trust, hope, and believing that you can survive. You are strong, and I'm proud of you." The sun rose higher, illuminating the floating groves with a warm, golden light. The predators had retreated completely, the forest quieted, and peace returned. Lyra's colony began repairing the bridges, preparing for the day ahead, while Elias observed, knowing his work here was done. He had stayed through the night, faced dangers unimaginable, and helped a small alien child survive. For the first time in many days, Elias allowed himself to relax. The forests of Elira were beautiful, alive, and full of dangers, but they were also full of life, hope, and courage. Humans, he realized, had a unique ability to endure, to protect, and to inspire. That ability had carried both him and Lyra through the darkest nights. Lyra's people gathered around, offering thanks, curiosity, and cautious friendship. Elias felt a connection, not just to the child he had protected, but to the alien world itself. He had seen the strength of life in all its forms, and he had learned that courage, trust, and compassion were universal truths. As the day unfolded, Lyra's people shared stories of her bravery with the colony. Elders spoke softly to her, praising her strength, while mothers held their children close, inspired by her example. Lyra stood proudly, her glow steady and bright, a symbol of resilience and hope. Elias watched from the edge of the grove, reflecting on the journey. The nights had been long, filled with fear and danger, but they had also been filled with lessons. He had seen the power of trust, the importance of courage, and the strength of the human spirit when paired with determination. Before leaving the grove, Lyra ran up to him, her small hands gripping his arms. "Will you stay a little longer?" she asked, her glow warm and steady. "I cannot stay forever," Elias said gently, "but I will always remember you, Lyra. And you will always remember that courage can keep the dark away, as long as you are brave and trust yourself." She nodded, a faint smile on her lips. "I will never forget. Thank you for staying, for protecting me, for showing me what it means to be brave." Elias looked around at the floating groves, the glowing forest, and the child he had saved. He felt a deep sense of fulfillment. The universe was vast, full of unknown dangers and incredible beauty, but humans had the ability to make a difference. To stay, to endure, to inspire courage in others. That, he realized, was humanity's greatest strength. As he began the journey back to his exploration ship, Elias glanced one last time at Lyra. She waved, her glow pulsing softly in farewell. He knew that she would be safe now, surrounded by her people and stronger than ever before. The forests of Elyra stretched endlessly ahead, full of life, mystery, and challenges. But Elias walked with confidence, knowing that courage, hope, and human determination could shine brighter than any darkness. And in that truth, he found not only survival but purpose, and the quiet joy of having stayed through the night for someone who needed him most.